good, battery's good. All right, so we talk about side hustles a lot wow. People are really interested in side hustles, right? They want to know, what they can do to make extra money while also diversifying what they do every day. And it makes sense, right? We want to avoid burnout. We don't want to be doing the same thing over and over and over. So coming up with a side hustle is a great idea, right? There are tons of possibilities for side hustles. But one thing I often see is that the entryway to the side hustle, there's a lot of gatekeeping around that area, right? And one of the side hustles that is really great, but often very gate-kept, if that's even a term, is immigration evaluations, right? And we're going to talk all about that today. I think as you watch this video, you're going to realize you probably don't need to pay for some of the trainings out there. This whole video is going to deep dive into immigration evaluations and share with you all the steps you need to take to begin them and inform you all about them. I first heard about it. I heard about it on YouTube or some blog, and I was interested in trying to get into immigration evaluations. It sounded like a great gig. It would allow me to diversify my day-to-day work. However, as I started to research this, I was able to learn a bit about what they were, but I wasn't able to figure out how do I actually do it. That is where I hit these roadblocks. So people were trying to sell really expensive courses to train me on immigration evaluations. I was trying to get copies of samples that I could just see, like what is it, what is involved in it, and people would try to sell these to me for like several $100s. I also saw people trying to sell consent forms to immigration evaluations. And now there's a place for that, right? I don't think people should just give away all their information, all their skills for free. I mean, I know the world doesn't work that way, and people should value their expertise and their skills. So this is nothing against people who are making immigration evaluation courses or selling those things. However, I did notice that it was really hard to even figure out where to start without having to pay a pretty exorbitant fee. And now fast forward, I've conducted successful immigration evaluations, and I didn't need to pay for the expensive trainings or the forms or anything like that. And I want to share with you how I was able to do that. I want to open the doors to immigration evaluation for anyone who might be interested. But if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button on this video and subscribe down below. It really is helpful. Only if you want to, though. There is no pressure. So then the first thing we actually have to answer is what exactly is an immigration evaluation? And if you've never heard of that before, it can be a little overwhelming. Now you'll see me glancing over here. I have a couple of notes written down. But an immigration evaluation is simply a type of mental health assessment that a provider, a mental health provider, right, a therapist, conducts with an individual to help them or their family member with the immigration process. And there are several different types of immigration evaluations, okay? There are what's known as extreme hardship waivers and cancellation of removals. There's asylums, VAWAs, violence against women, UNT visas, naturalization waivers, or N648s. Now, they're very confusing terms. I know that. I'm actually going to leave a link down below to a website that is called the Immigration Evaluation Institute. They are actually a really good resource. They have tons of really good explanations and free blog posts that you can read a lot about. And for the most part, a mental health therapist is going to be doing what's called a hardship waiver. And to put it simply, when you do a hardship waiver, what you're doing is you're conducting a mental health evaluation for a U.S. citizen and determining the hardship they would face if their family member was to be deported back to their home country or if they were to go back to the country with their family member. So for example, you'll often see this in married couples. One of the partners will get the hardship evaluation, and what you're doing is you're evaluating the partner who is a U.S. citizen, and you're determining the hardship they will face if their partner, who, assuming they are not a U.S. citizen, is removed and has to go back to their home country, or the partner who is a citizen goes to the home country of the partner who's not a U.S. citizen. Does that make sense? Now, we also have to ask who can do immigration evaluations. And so for most of these assessments, including the hardship waiver, a licensed master's level mental health clinician can conduct the assessment. Now, this is going to vary state by state. So you are going to want to check with an attorney or your licensing board just to make sure that you can actually conduct these evaluations with your credentials. There are a couple of these evaluations that require a PhD. So you definitely want to check into this and make sure that according to your state, a master's level clinician can conduct the hardship waiver or any of the other waivers you're interested in. And then here's the big question. Do you need to get training? When you Google this and you start digging deep into immigration evaluations and you want to start to do them, you hit the roadblock. pay for this assessment, pay for that training, pay for sample forms, pay for the intake packet that allows you to do immigration evaluations. And you can start to feel like you need to be specifically trained to do immigration evaluations. And first off, let me just share that there is no specific training that is required for you to conduct an immigration evaluation. You do not get a master's degree in immigration evaluations. You do not require a special certificate to conduct them. You, as a mental health professional, are able to conduct immigration evaluations, right, without any extra training, technically. Now, I'm going to say this. If you are a brand new clinician and you haven't really done many intakes and you haven't really done many assessments or intake work, well, then it might be helpful to actually engage in one of these immigration evaluation trainings, right? They're going to teach you how to actually do the assessment. They're going to teach you the questions to ask and all that kind of stuff. However, if you're a fairly seasoned clinician, you've been doing intakes and diagnostic assessments and that kind of stuff, you're most likely going to be fine doing an immigration evaluation. You just need to know what questions to ask and how to write the report. Actually, I guess one thing I haven't mentioned is that immigration evaluations, they are essentially mental health assessments and you do get paid for them. Now, I want to say this, that an immigration evaluation is a lot of work, right? So it's probably going to require anywhere between 2 and 4 and 5 hours of actual face-to-face contact with the client. You're going to have to interview them, get to know them, and then you're writing a fairly substantial report. This can take anywhere, I would say, from 4 to 8 hours to write the report, maybe even more. And now your first couple, it's going to take a while. I mean, without a doubt, you're going to have to interview the person several times probably because you might forget to ask them certain things. And then you're going to take a lot of time to write this report because the report is quite lengthy and very detailed. It's not passive income by any means. You are doing a lot of work. And like anything else, you set your rates, but you want to set rates that are congruent with other people doing immigration evaluations in your area, right? I'm in New York. I see prices ranging from $1,000 for the immigration evaluation all the way to $3,500 for an immigration evaluation, and then things in between, right? So you are obviously earning money while you do this. At the same time, it's a lot of work, but it does free up your time in the sense that you're not tied to a schedule every day. All right, so then how do we actually get started? Now, the first thing you need to do is connect with an attorney, all right? So your referrals for immigration evaluations are going to come from attorneys specializing in immigration. Now, this is one of the hardest parts because it is going to involve networking, especially if you've never done this before. Now, what I did, I'm not joking, I spent several hours over many weeks going through directories and emailing every single attorney on the directory. It's old school. It sounds like a waste of time. However, I got a few, and I sent out a ton of emails like that, right? A lot of them went unanswered, but then 2 or 3 responded back. They were interested in my services. And so we were able to make a connection. And from those 2 or 3 connections, after several cold emails, I was able to begin doing immigration evaluations. Now, what exactly are you going to share with them in this email? Well, first off, you want to share with them that you're open to doing immigration evaluations, right? You also want to share that you're qualified in the sense that you're a licensed mental health professional. And considering you're new to this and probably have not done many immigration evaluations, you're not able to say, I've done a dozen or 2 dozen immigration evaluations. You do want to think about some of the other things you can bring to the table, right? So some things to think about. Are you bilingual? Can you do a really quick turnaround time, right? So if you're doing one for the first time, maybe you would be able to commit to doing the immigration evaluation within 2 or 3 weeks, right? A lot of times it's longer than this. Maybe you're really responsive and you're engaged with the attorney and the client, and so you're able to just be involved, right? So you're able to get things done quickly. So you want to kind of add into your email what you think would be helpful, right? So in my email, I shared with them that I was qualified. I was a licensed mental health professional with a lot of experience in conducting evaluations and doing diagnostic assessments, which was all truthful. It's from my previous jobs and things like that. I was also open and honest with the fact that I had not done many immigration evaluations and was looking to begin that work. I also said that I wanted to make them more accessible to people, so my rates were on the lower end of things. I also made it known that I was really responsive, that I would connect with the client right away, that I would get the assessment done as quickly as I could while maintaining a high quality level work. And so this worked out really well, right? You want to be honest in your emails. You want to be genuine, and you also want to speak to your strengths, right? Whatever you can bring to the table. And with that, you'll be able to connect with at least 1 or 2 attorneys. I also needed to figure out how to get a sample of an immigration evaluation, right? Now, this was something that people were trying to sell to me, a sample, like just a redacted copy of one, right? And once I finally connected with an attorney, he was willing to send me samples. And I was able to get a couple. There was obviously no identifying information on there. And I was able to read through these and begin to understand what was actually going on in these evaluations. I learned that it was nothing new. I've assessed for mental health. I've assessed for trauma. I've asked questions about family history and all that kind of stuff. Now, there were some new ones I had to learn to ask, right? I had to learn to ask about specifically related to immigration and having a family member that was not a U.S. citizen. But these are things that we learn as mental health professionals, how to ask new questions, how to ask hard questions. I really just needed to see that report. There's so many different templates that people use, and you can really come up with what works for you. But as long as you follow a similar structure to what most other people are doing, then you'll be totally fine. And again, I was able to build out a structure after reading a whole bunch of different samples that I was given. So I think one of the keys to being able to do immigration evaluations is getting your hands on a sample report. Now, I cannot share the sample reports I have. I would like to do that, but I can't because they are not mine to give away. This attorney is the one who shared those with me. My point here is that an attorney may be willing to share it with you. You also are going to need a special set of consent forms for immigration evaluations. Now, again, people are trying to sell you this, but the best way to get these forms is simply by asking an attorney. So I have an attorney that I work with who helps me with all my private practice stuff. And I wasn't sure if he was familiar with this stuff, but one of my calls with him, I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing immigration evaluations. And he was able to send me all of these consent forms, right? So I didn't pay another therapist for them. So ask your attorney if they're familiar with this. And then finally, you just have to go for it. After a little bit of time, you're going to have connected with an attorney. You're going to have read through samples. You're going to have the consent forms from the attorney, and you're going to be ready to go. A couple of things that helped me in the beginning were to know that it's a learning experience. You're not going to be perfect, just like you weren't perfect your first day as a therapist. It may be challenging the first time. It may take you longer, but that's okay. If you forget something, you're able to schedule a follow-up if you didn't ask the right question. So there's a lot of grace in this immigration evaluation. You don't have to just schedule it one time, get it all done, be perfect, and then write the report. And then with the report, you don't have to get it right. You don't have to write the perfect report the first time. You're going to write a report. You're going to send it to the attorney. They're going to share with you some feedback. You might edit some things, add some things. You might connect with the client again. But again, there's a lot of grace in that report writing, right? So you're going to learn a lot through this process. You're not going to be perfect the first time, but you are going to be able to do it, and you'll be able to get better each and every immigration evaluation that you do. So if you like this video and you thought it was helpful and you want to go deeper into topics like this, you might want to consider joining my consultation group. This is an online community where you can ask me any question. I will respond personally to each and every question that is asked. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you learned something. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you soon.